In Path of Exile 2, leveling can take quite some time. On top of that, most skills only unlock on a higher character level, leaving you with the need of utilizing some skills early that you later want to transition out of. But because the respec cost on the passive tree is very low, this makes an opportunity for powerful leveling builds. This video is about one of these, utilizing Lightning Arrow and Lightning Rod to nuke single target and clear zones very quickly. Now, this was made with a ranger in mind and tested on a ranger going into a Deadeye, where it is best at. However, this can work on every build, on every Ascendancy, because you just need generic scaling on the passive tree, which Path of Exile 2 really excels at, just giving you increased generic damages. So as long as you have a good bow and a good quiver, you can do this on 0 budget at a league start, or you can do it on any Ascendancy with a little bit of budget, preparing a little bit of gear at a later stage. Both feeling really, really great. Now, I have made a written guide that covers everything, and you can take a look at that, of course, at your own pace. It's linked in the description and in the pinned comment. Now, this video will contain a little bit of whys and hows, but written guide has a lot of basic information. However, if I missed anything in this video and or the written guide, feel free to message me. If it's lacking, I will update it, or I can mention it I can respond to the comment itself. I am available to respond on Discord, on YouTube, and sometimes when I live stream also on Twitch. Now to this. It is super important for this to be built to feel smooth to regularly upgrade your bow and quiver. Even before we understand how the build works, I need to make this clear. It's super important that for this build to feel smooth, you need a good bow and you need a good quiver. Regularly upgrade your quiver about all 20 levels and upgrade your bow constantly whenever you find a new bow off the ground, or check the vendor when you feel like your bow is a little bit lacking, you haven't upgraded it in like 5 to 10 levels. Check vendor, see if you can find an upgrade with the bow, and upgrade all the way until you have a dual string bow. Now, the dual string bow specifically is the bow you want to use till the end of the campaign. The reason for that is why Lightning Arrow and Lightning Rod are so powerful. For that, let me explain how those skills work, and then we can go back to why this additional arrow is that good. Lightning Rod fires a projectile in the air that lands wherever you were targeting, and it creates a little AoE burst of damage. Now, whenever a lightning beam from Lightning Arrow or Orb of Storms, which I get to in a moment, chains on that lightning rod, this lightning rod will do its damage again. Normally, those can only go on enemies, but lightning rod specifically says it can also be targeted by those chaining projectiles or chaining beams, however you want to phrase them. So these beams can chain on your lightning rods and re-trigger them, meaning that on, let's say, a single rare or unique boss, you fire 2 to 3 lightning rods on it and then fire 1 lightning arrow that will hit the enemy, and then it will chain to the lightning rod, so the lightning arrow does its own damage, and then the lightning rods do their damage again. This means scaling additional projectiles now means that more lightning rods are fired, which means more lightning rods can be triggered, which means that we can do more damage. Now, Orb of Storms coming into this mix replaces Lightning Arrow for single target. We can still use Lightning Arrow to shoot from a distance when we don't want to be near a boss, or when we don't want to be near a rare that is just annoying to be near it or has too much attack speed. We can always be safe and utilize Lightning Arrow from a distance. But if we are up close, we can place an Orb of Storm beneath us and then fire Lightning Rod. So Orb of Storms, again, utilizes lightning beams that chain. So when you are in a lightning or an Orb of Storm and you use a lightning skill such as Lightning Rod, it will fire regularly beams of lightning that chain off enemies, or lightning rods. So when you stand there and you fire your lightning rods, the lightning rods land, do the initial damage, the Orb of Storm triggers and chains off the lightning rods, dealing more damage. So instead of needing to fire lightning rods, then lightning arrow, then more rods, then more arrows, we can just fire lightning rods, and the Orb of Storms does all the triggering. Now, that out of the way, this is how this build melts bosses, and melts zones. And the additional arrow just means we have more rods to do more damage, and we have more arrows with lightning arrow to have more coverage. Now, for the rest of the gear in a non-investive scenario, in like a league start where you start from scratch, you really need to just focus on life and resistances, with the exception of movement speed on boots and spirit on your body armor or amulet. This spirit allows you to utilize Wind Dancer early, which is a huge survivability boost, giving you a more multiplier to your evasion rating. And especially once you have the Tailwind Ascendancy, if you go on a ranger or you have a decent body armor with flat evasion, this evasion will keep you alive during most of the campaign. Otherwise, just focus on resistances, life, and get flat damage on gloves and rings if you can as a bonus. Now, if you decide to use this in a prepared run, called a Twink run, where you prepare additional gear to utilize, you can 4-link already your Lightning Arrow and Lightning Rod, which I didn't even do, it wasn't needed by any way, but it heavily will boost your damage. You can use uniques such as Swordfoot Sigil, Wanderlust, or Bushwhack for movement speed guaranteed on your boots, a Paradise Embrace for that spirit I just mentioned or reduced mana cost. A Widow Hail early on can go a long way. It's also a really good consideration for your first 1 to 2 Exalted Orbs, so you can utilize, if you get them dropped early in Act 1 and Act 2, you use the Widow Hail plus a really good quiver, and you get all the power from your quiver and all the damage, until you then have a good dual string bow at about level 34, 36, where you unlock the tier 5 lightning damage. So this can help you stay a bit longer on just the quiver and the Widow Hail with some runes and do a good chunk of damage, and then the dual string bow comes back as the best in slot bow because of just the additional arrow being that powerful. There are also the potential of utilizing Gold Rim for additional all elemental resistances, or a Swill Steel for that additional speed, which is also just great, but you give up survivability. You can prepare rare rings, gloves with all resistance, or any unique gloves or rings with resistance or flat damage, both work. And if you really want to overkill on this, you can even prepare jewels that have like increased effect of your quiver. All really solid options to further enhance your Twink leveling, but of course, the more you invest into it, you're gonna save time for the campaign, but also you're gonna be investing into a character, into gear that you just use for leveling. Now, for the skill gems, we have a super easy progression on the skill gems. We unlock everything but one skill gem in Act 1, and the last skill gem is an optional damage boost we don't even actually need. So we're going to be starting with, on a ranger, with a lightning arrow before we even enter the first town. On any other build, of course, you would need to use your first uncut gem for lightning arrow, and the second one would go for lightning rod. But we're assuming a ranger here for the sake of this video. So you start with lightning arrow. You're then gonna be getting, on the first uncut skill gem, you're gonna get lightning rod, and on the second you're gonna get escape shot. Escape shot allows you to reposition yourself and freeze enemies if you get swarmed, and lightning arrow and lightning rod are your main skills, which you have from level 2 forward. So it's really great, we already have the most important skills. Now, to support those, lightning arrow, you want to get Pierce and martial tempo. But the very first support gem you want is Scattershot on lightning rod. This is just like with the dual string bow, additional projectiles on lightning rod are worth so much. Now technically, if one projectile deals 100% damage, you now have 20% less damage from support skill. So you now have 80% damage, but because now you fire 3 projectiles that all can hit the same enemy, this makes your damage 240%. So this is a massive more multiplier to your single target. And early on, even to your clear Scattershot on a lightning rod even kills just packs straight up if you want to use it early. So very powerful early combination. You then gonna get your first level 3 uncut skill gem. And that you're gonna keep in your inventory for another few levels, because we need 3 plus 5 intelligence nodes on the attributes. We're gonna be grabbing those are planned in the pathing on the passive tree. And then we're gonna be getting an Orb of Storms and our next 2 support gems are gonna be Overabundance and Chain to be linked to the Orb of Storms. 2 Orb of Storms trigger twice as many lightning rods in the same time, and Chain means more chaining, meaning we trigger twice as many lightning rods in the same time. So with this setup, we now have all the single target we need for the rest of the campaign until we get at least 2 level 2 support gems, and assumingly 4 links if you want to go and invest into if you get a lesser jeweler orb early, or you want to use that additional exalt or 2 to buy those. After you have your Orb of Storms, we're gonna get our first Spirit Gem, which will be Herald of Thunder, helping us with clear and coverage. And your second Spirit Gem, you're gonna be grabbing Wind Dancer. Now, we're likely not gonna be able to use Wind Dancer directly. We will have to wait till we get another 30 Spirit. This can be from a rare body armor or amulet starting at level 16, or you're gonna use the Pariah's Embrace at level 26, or you're gonna go all the way till about, I think, was level 36 in the Ascan, or however that's phrased, Borg in Act 3, where you're gonna get your next 30 Spirit. The earlier you can use it, the better, because Wind Dancer has a huge survivability boost, and the 30 additional Spirit we're gonna get in Act 3 can then be used to put Vitality and Clarity into your build as later support gems. We then gonna get a level 5 gem. This is gonna be end of Act 1. We're gonna get Freezing Salvo, which helps us in utility damage. I'm actually not even using it that much when I leveled. So you want Freezing Salvo with this 2 support gems, Ice Bite and Hourglass. Those 2 support gems make you want to use it every 10 seconds at most anyway, so you utilize this during a boss fight when you need to reposition yourself and the boss isn't heavy stunned yet, or you utilize it when you get swarmed by a pack of enemies and they aren't really on top of you yet, so you don't need Escape Shot. You instead can use Freezing Salvo, reposition yourself, maybe proc Ice Bite, do a bit of damage, and clear the pack. That's where Freezing Salvo is for. It's a semi-emergency skill, mixed with a bit of quality of life. And then finally, this is the only gem we use that we don't get in Act 1. Is at level 22 or 24, Voltaic Mark. This gem is going to be a level 7 gem, and it's going to allow us to increase the shock magnitude, but also it allows us to utilize a weapon swap if we want to add culling into the build, and also have increased damage taken on the enemies. I get to that in a moment when we look at the passive tree. The last 4 support gems we're going to be needing for campaigns that are of level of tier 1 support gems is Lightning Infusion and Enervate for our Herald of Thunder after we have the Freezing Salvo support gems, and then Clarity and Vitality linked to Wind Dancer once we are at 90 Spirit. Now, in case you want to use lesser jeweler orbs or have level 2 support gems or tier 2 support gems, the first thing we want is Primal Armament linked to our Lightning Rod. This is the second link on Lightning Rod. And then we have Close Combat for Lightning Rod and Long Shot for Lightning Arrow if you use a third support socket with a lesser jeweler orb. Now, for the passive tree, there is a really generic pathing. For the Ascendancy, we want Tailwind first with Gathering Winds. This gives us a lot of speed, meaning we can run the campaign faster. And then we want Point Blank. Every time we need to do a lot of damage, we're gonna be likely in melee range on enemies because we want to place down the Orb of Storms and fire our Lightning Rod. And for that, we need to be near the Orb of Storms, meaning we need to be near the enemy. So Point Blank with the same with Close Combat, and with the passive tree now, Stand and Deliver, just allows us to do all that single target damage. Then for the passive tree, we're gonna be going for Honed Instincts, into Vile Wounds, into Eagle Eye, into Blur. Then we grab the 3 intelligence nodes for Orb of Storms. We need 1 strength node for support gems later. And then we can already start to just grab all the damage we can get. I'm not going to go into too much detail on the passive tree. It is written very detailed into the written guide. What I do want to mention is the weapon set, because this needs a bit of setup. To utilize a weapon set properly, you need to, in your skill panel, disable the usage on weapon set 2 on all your skills except Voltaic Mark, which you set to only be used on weapon set 2. And on the passive tree, we can then use Marked for Death and Marked for Sickness, making the enemy take 10% increased damage, and you have Cutting Strike against the marked enemy. And the notes that you have in your weapon set 1 instead will gonna be Sand in the Eyes and Blinding Flash, which are exactly the passive points needed for the Mark notables. And that is everything. This build is planning to be a level 63 at the end of campaign, which is exactly the zone level of Act 3 cool difficulty when you kill Doryani. You can run most of the zones 3 level under, and towards the end you might need to slow a little bit down to get a little bit of more experience, and you're good to go. Now, if I forgot anything in this video, if anything is unclear, again, feel free to ask. The comment section is open. I'm available on Discord via DMs or via designated channels on my Discord server. And all this being said, if this video was helpful, if this helped you make your ranger leveling or whatever leveling you want to do with this, I would highly appreciate if you could come back, give it a thumbs up, and also would like a subscribe to the channel. It helps me grow, it helps me reach more people that my videos are helpful for. All this being said, have a wonderful day and goodbye.